In this lecture, I want to now go over the key characteristics of Bitcoin and what makes it so unique as a cryptocurrency. So let's jump into all of that now. So to start with, we mentioned this in the last lecture actually, but Bitcoin is completely decentralized. The Bitcoin network isn't controlled by any one central governing body. So, in essence, no one single institution or person can cause a meltdown of the network. Now, if part of the network fails and goes offline, fear not, as transactions will still flow and process, as there are a network of computers still active, hence processing transactions. And on top of that, with Bitcoin, your coins can't be taken away from you, as was the case in Cyprus 2013, and more recently, people in India being limited to the amount of money that they can withdraw from their banks. So Bitcoin really does have a place in this world. I mean, why should your hard-earned money be controlled by another organisation? The next characteristic of Bitcoin is that it's easy to get set up and started with, as you'll find out in a few lectures' time. Just think about all the information that banks require from you in order to set up an account with them. Setting up a Bitcoin wallet is so much simpler, I mean a lot simpler, but I'll show you how simple in a few lectures' time. Let's move on to the third characteristic of Bitcoin, which is that it's completely anonymous, as long as you use the correct methods. Now, it's anonymous as you want it to be. So you want it to be anonymous, and on top of that, it's as anonymous as you want it to be. So every single Bitcoin transaction is shown in the Bitcoin blockchain and recorded in it. But those transactions don't actually link to your name or any other sort of identifiable information at all. Like I mentioned, transactions can be as anonymous as you want them to be. But remember, all transactions are transparent in the sense that you can view them on the Bitcoin blockchain, as I mentioned. But you're probably thinking now, didn't I just say it's anonymous? So all transactions, like I said, are viewable in the blockchain, and this blockchain records all the Bitcoin transactions that are happening and that have ever taken place, every single one. Now you can make your wallet more anonymous by using different addresses, maybe mixing wallets and so on. But as it's community based, the transactions are visible, but of course not linked to you in any way, shape or form. Let's now move on to the next characteristic of the blockchain and Bitcoin, which is that it's compared to traditional banks in terms of transaction fees. So with banks, the transaction fees are pretty high, and with Bitcoin, they're absolutely tiny. Literally, they are minuscule. Now, banks charge anything from $10 to, let's say, $25 for a single international transfer. But Bitcoin transactions are no way that high. So that's another selling point for Bitcoin. Transaction fees are minuscule. On top of that, it's super fast. Transactions happen in about 10 minutes, whereas traditional overseas bank transfers can take days, even in this day and age. Just to point out, Bitcoin, if you weren't aware, is a what we call global based currency. It isn't specific to any one country, as currencies are, such as the Great British Pound and so on. So Bitcoin can be used globally. One thing I do want you to be aware of is that once you send Bitcoins, there's no way to get them back, unless of course the person that you sent them to resends them to you. So always make sure that the address that you're sending Bitcoins to is the correct address. So those are all of the unique selling points of Bitcoin. It's decentralized, easy, anonymous, transparent, fees are minuscule, super fast, and it has non-reputable transactions. Now I hope you got some value out of this lecture. I look forward to seeing you in the next.